Okay, this video is taking a look at doing a projected macro cut on a three-dimensional surface IGES file. So let's get started. I've opened Geopath and I'm going to go ahead and create a new program. I'm going to give it a name, and before I load in the IGES file and preparing the file for our cutting, or programming our cuts, I want to go ahead and go to Settings, CAD File Settings, and I want to set up the settings that I need for IGES files. So I'm going to go ahead, without getting into a lot of explanation about this, you can find more information in help. I'm going to go ahead and just set this up from the default settings to settings that I know will work, the options that I want selected for dealing with 3D surfaces. So there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Main, Files, Load CAD, and I'm going to select this IGES file, which is the inner nozzle. I'm going to go ahead and now we're going to import it. So here we go. If I go to Layers Set, I can see now that Geopath has broken this file up into 3 layers. So let's find out what these layers contain. The layer 0, or default layer, is already highlighted blue. And I'm going to go ahead and select All Invisible OK, and I can see that there is nothing here in this layer. Back up to Layers. Layers Set. I'm going to go to Layer 1. All Invisible OK. I can see now that here's surfaces. It looks like I have my surface indicators. And another way to check, if I go to Info Object Data and I scroll my mouse and looking at the bottom left of the Geopath screen, I can see that I'm pointing at surfaces of revolution, a plane surface, NURBS. So I can see now that Geopath has put all the surface information on this file in a layer called Layer 1. If I go back up to Layer Set, I go to the second layer, or layer number 2, All Invisible. Now I have my part looking the same, but there isn't any surface indicators, so let's see what we have here. If I go to Info Object Data and do the same thing, I can see that I'm pointing at now boundary geometry, a 3D line, arc. There isn't any surfaces. So layer 2 contains all the boundary information, and layer 1 is all the surfaces. Now, one thing at looking at this part, I can see that the part origin is fine, X and Y, but I can see now that looking at it from the front view, and this would be my Z, that the part is actually above in positive Z. And I would like to have the highest point of the part to be at Z0. So what I'm going to do to make this change is I'm going to use a transform function, but before doing that I want to turn all my layers on, because when I move the part around for the part origin, I want to have both the 3D surfaces as well as the boundary geometry all together when I make this move. So I'm going to go to Layers, Set, and I'm going to turn on all the layers, all visible, OK. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to go to Info Object Data, and right up here at the top I can see that the highest Z of this part is 1.39063. So I'm going to go to Transform, Translate, Relative Incremental, and I'm going to move everything. I want to select everything on screen, and I actually want to move it down in Z by negative 1.39063. Number of copies, 1. Do I want to leave original copies? No. So there. I'm going to back out a little bit so you can see this. But now I have the part now situated how I want it. I want Z0 to be right up at the top from a top view, X and Y is right there at the center of the part, which is fine. Now, the approach that I'm going to use to do this 3D cut, since we're only interested in the top surface of this, let me turn on the solid view. We're only going to be milling all around these two bosses, not inside, but just this top surface area and these two bosses with the fillet down at the bottom. We also have a little chamfer up at the top here. And that's all we're going to be concerned about with this operation and video. Just to let you, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but to look underneath, we can see that these two bosses also have fillets down here at the bottom, and it also needs to have another milling operation that can be done at a later time. So let's get back up to our top of our part, and we're going to go ahead and go back to wireframe. And how we're going to be cutting this is actually these two bosses are going to be, we're going to attack this by using surfaces, but we're going to be actually doing a projected macro cut, and this will allow us to do a regular simple 2D mill cut and then project this as a second step onto a three-dimensional surface, which are these two bosses and flat part of this part. It will be clearer to you as we go, but in order for me to make the 2D cut, that's the first step that we want to do. We actually just, the first step is we're going to do a 2D milling cut. I need to have some of this geometry. So if I look at this part from the top view, I actually am interested in having this boundary and these bosses. So in order to do this, since we're actually have a 3D, I want to actually create a smashed version of the geometry. Let me go to set. Let me just turn this on so you'll understand what I'm talking about. Here is the surfaces turned off, and this is just our boundary information. I actually want to smash this all in Z, so Z0, just like a regular XY milling cut. So I'm going to use a special function under Layers, Special Layer Functions, Make Layer with all objects smashed in Z. And it's going to, Geopath is going to give it a name. You can change it if you want, but I'm just going to use Z Smash as the layer name. Okay. Just pick a color. Leave original objects. Yes, I'd like to do that. And now Geopath wants to know what objects you want to smash in Z. Well, what I want to do, I'm going to go to the right view. I actually am going to put a window all around. All I want to do is smash everything from the upper bosses down to the top of that plate. I'm not really interested in the geometry that is the inside of that boss. So I'm going to go ahead and put my window around this. Click. It's found the objects. I'm going to click OK. Now we'll click Done. Do you want to simplify the geometry? Sure. And it's done. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. If I go up into Layers, Set, I can see now there is another layer that is now named Z Smash. I'm going to go ahead and make that all invisible. I just want to look at Z Smash. I'm going to go to the top view, and now you can see that I actually just have a two-dimensional object of this part that I'm interested in milling. So for the projected macro cut, this is what we need. So I'm going to pick this up on another part of the video.